safe.
Hello and welcome to the News Unlocked, the show that takes you behind the headlines to the real stories that matter. India's coronavirus tally has now crossed the 8 million mark, and the search continues for a safe and effective coronavirus vaccine, as does the long wait. Today we focus on one of the most promising contenders, the contender that claims to have made this week a major breakthrough, the Oxford AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine, which according to some claims has now developed an immune response among the patients during clinical trials. We'll be speaking to Adar Poonawalla, the CEO of Serum Institute, which is working with the Oxford vaccine to produce the first batch of 100 million doses in the country. We'll also speak to the head of CSIR, one of the country's leading scientists, Dr. Shekhar Mande, to decode the science and logistics behind vaccinating more than 1 billion people. But first, let's take a look today at the report about the Oxford vaccine, the vaccine that could well be ahead of the race.
There are about 200 vaccine candidates in development around the world. The World Health Organization recognizes 154 vaccines in preclinical trial phase, 36 which are in the small-scale phase 1 trials, 16 vaccine candidates are in phase 2 expanded safety trials, 11 in large-scale efficacy trials, and none as yet approved. One of the frontrunners in the vaccine race has offered fresh hope, that of a viable vaccine which might work for all. Reports suggest the COVID-19 vaccine being developed by the University of Oxford has triggered protective antibodies and T cells in older age groups. The findings echo data released in July, which showed the vaccine generated robust immune responses in a group of healthy adults aged between 18 and 55. But experts caution that positive immunogenicity tests do not guarantee that the vaccine will ultimately prove safe and effective. Details of the latest findings are expected to be published shortly in a clinical journal. Vaccines being developed by Oxford University and in Germany are at this moment believed to be the most likely candidates to be ready this year. But there may be a spanner in the works, it seems. A study by the Imperial College in London involving 365,000 people has shown that antibodies fell by more than a quarter in just 3 months. Experts say this rapid decline in immunity could mean that when a successful vaccine is found, it might have to be administered twice a year. And this rapid decline could be a matter of concern for developing a successful, all-purpose, one-shot coronavirus vaccine. In India, the Serum Institute is all poised to produce the first 100 million doses of the Oxford vaccine, once it passes all the tests and is given the green signal.
So with all eyes now on that Oxford vaccine, I'm joined by a very special guest. Joining me now is Adar Poonawalla, the CEO of the Serum Institute of India, the world and India's largest vaccine maker in terms of number of doses. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Poonawalla. The big question, of course, is what's coming out of Oxford at the moment. Reports there suggesting, Adar, that at the moment you've got a situation where Oxford AstraZeneca are claiming that they have managed to get an element of high element, initial reports are saying, of immune responses from a number of patients, including those in the vulnerable age group, especially the elderly. Do you believe that this fundamentally now pushes forward your entire project for an early development of a coronavirus vaccine, considering you are very much part of this global collaboration?
Absolutely. Nice to talk to you firstly. And, you know, the trial in the UK is almost complete. They're talking about an emergency licensure there because there's some reports that hospitals there will receive the vaccine early because it is producing a good response, the T cell response, which is your CD4, CD8 cells, which is what you need for your long-term immunity, in addition to your antibodies, which are there anyway, the data is very good. And as a result, if the UK goes into an emergency licensure, it'll be up to the government of India to then decide and take a call after analyzing that data, whether we follow suit in about a month as well. Having said that, our own trial in India will be completed by January. So, now it'll be up to the UK health authorities and the Indian health authorities to take a decision on how safe and efficacious this vaccine is. And as you know, we've been stockpiling a lot of this product, so we'll have substantial volumes by December, January, if they decide to license the vaccine by then to distribute to the country.
You're giving us a very important news point there, Mr. Poonawalla. You're telling me that if, as the media reports coming in from London suggest, that the UK hospital trust could now get doses of the Oxford vaccine, possibly early November, certainly by Christmas, for emergency responses to coronavirus, a similar availability could be made to Indian hospitals by the end of the year. Am I correct?
That will, yes, that will depend entirely on the drug controller of India after he analyzes the data coming in from the UK and in India that we've got so far. And if he thinks it makes sense and the health ministry officials and other ministries at the moment who are all coordinated in this joint effort decide that at risk, for a limited amount of people, whether it's the healthcare workers and the elderly, the vulnerable populations, we give a limited amount of vaccine to them, come December, January, that is possible. But again, after we look at that data, which will be available in about 2 weeks' time from now from the UK.
Interesting again what you're saying, because it appears therefore that we are now looking at a two-stage process, and feel free to correct me, where the vaccine initially gets distributed for emergency care and high-risk groups, particularly for healthcare workers, and those who are more vulnerable as early as January, and then possibly by the middle of next year for mass distribution. Am I correct? Because the talk in UK is that the vaccine could be available for mass distribution only in the middle of next year. Are we looking therefore at a two-stage process now?
Absolutely. So you've articulated that perfectly. So we get a limited amount of supply out to the most vulnerable early on, and then we give the rest of the population once all the trials are fully completed. I think that would make the most logical sense. That's the way, everyone's going to go.
Mr. Poonawalla, the UK clinical trials are in an advanced stage 3 at the moment. I'd like to know, or our viewers would like to know, where are we? Where is India? You're also conducting trials simultaneously in India. Do you have a time frame by when the trials in India will also get completed?
January, because we've already given the first dose to most of the patients in the trial, which is more than 1,000 so far already. The total trial is for 1,600 patients in India. So once we give the second dose and then analyze their samples and monitor them for safety and efficacy, that's why I say January to be absolutely safe for India. But then again, we'll have to wait till all the data comes in from the UK to collate that together. And then, the Indian drug controller will have enough data to then decide which way to go and when to license the product.
So that's an important news point. Oxford trials in India for the Oxford vaccine should be done by January. And you've also told us that you are simultaneously even now stockpiling millions of doses of the vaccine. The big question then comes, how is it going to get distributed, Mr. Poonawalla? Do you already have a plan in mind for the rollout of the distribution?
So initially, nobody knew how that should happen. We also had a feeling that we should give it to the most vulnerable to begin with, the elderly, the healthcare workers, and other vulnerable pockets. And, then now we've heard that the center, the health ministry, will decide and it's not the states individually or any company. And we respect that decision. I think it's great that there'll be one nodal point that will decide how to do it in a fair and ethical manner, because they have all the data of where all the elderly or the healthcare workers would be, most vulnerable people would be, and they should rightly so distribute it as they deem fit. So we're going to just follow, their lead and do as they ask us to with the initial supply. And maybe in a year or so, then once there's enough supply, we go into the private market and other areas and, sell it the way we want to as a commercial product.
Okay, so that's as far as distribution, where you're saying the government will sort of, in a sense, put out the detailed plan, but there is also the question of costs. We've just seen an announcement during the Bihar election campaign of a free vaccine for Bihar. Other states such as Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu are also talking now of a free vaccine being distributed. Is that on the table? Can you tell us from a commercial perspective, how much will the vaccine cost? And will there be, importantly, multiple doses of the vaccine that anyone will have to take, not just one dose?
So because we're talking at the moment at the highest levels at different ministries in the government, I won't comment exactly on the price, but it's going to be a very affordable price for a few hundred rupees. And, again, for the bulk of it, the government will probably procure the vaccine and give it free to, the people who can't afford to take it and have it. But we'll also be selling a part of that quantity, as I said, after maybe 6 months or a year, to the private market where people will pay for it. And, I don't think a few hundred rupees, considering tests today are costing more than 1,400 rupees, a very high price. So we're going to price it very affordable so that, the government can also buy enough of it, given the size of our population and the fact that it's going to be a 2-dose vaccine. So we're going to price it the lowest in India, and then in other markets abroad, in other countries, we'll probably price it at a higher price.
So effectively, and this is again important, what you're saying is that in the first year, the government is likely to subsidize the vaccine if they have to give it free, because presumably that's the only way that they can fulfill their promise of a free vaccine. The commercial angle will come after year one.
Well, and they've made it very clear in a lot of public responses that they have enough funds and the capability and the will to do that. So that's very good news. And, we should all rest assured that the government is fully prepared, geared up, both financially and logistically to handle that, which is now very clear. And they've made it very publicly clear with different statements coming out from the government of India. And we're very grateful for that.
The other question that I raised a short while ago, Mr. Poonawalla, and you might want to respond about doses. There is a belief that you will need multiple doses, and what is the efficacy of those doses? Because will it only last for a year and then you go for a second dose? Efficacy and safety, Mr. Poonawalla, remain real worries when it comes to a vaccine.
So these early candidates, it's very clear, like Novavax, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, all of these vaccines will probably need 2 doses. The Oxford AstraZeneca candidate will need 2 doses. Traditionally, most vaccines are 2 to 3 doses anyway. Even if you look at pneumonia, HPV, measles, pentavalent, all these vaccines, you need a booster dose to give you that higher level, long-lasting protection, so that you don't have to keep coming back and taking one every year. But having said that, it's too soon to comment on the COVID vaccines, where we don't know how long, even with a second dose, you'll get that protection. Only time will tell after 1 or 2 years pass, and we see whether people are actually protected against the disease. And then we'll know how long it's protecting for and when you need another jab. And perhaps, the next generation of vaccines coming about, including ours, in about a year's time or year and a half, the live attenuated vaccines, the whole unit vaccines, which will give definitely a better, more powerful response and a long-lasting response. But, we can't wait for that. We have to take and vaccinate our populations in the interim with whatever is available and safe, at least to give you that 50-60% protection. And let me tell you, when we say 50-60% protection, even the rest of the people who may not get such a great response from the vaccine, the severity of the disease for them will be far less. So their chances of death and mortality will be substantially reduced. And that's why even a vaccine which is 50 to 60% effective is going to be licensed all over the world.
I take that point, but the concern, Mr. Poonawalla, remains safety, because there are so many vaccines out there in various stages, and all the companies are fast forwarding a process that normally takes several years. Is that a concern that because of this fierce competition, the entire process could well be pushed too hard at times, including the Oxford vaccine?
Well, that's a very good point. With perhaps the other candidates, that is a very valid point. But with the Oxford AstraZeneca one, and that's one of the reasons why we backed it early on, is that the platform has been tested for safety and efficacy many, many times in thousands of people for many years, including the Ebola vaccine and other things. So the chimp adenovirus is a very time-tested, safe and efficacious platform. And that's why I, at least for this candidate to begin with, have no concerns on safety. But of course, no one can be 100% sure. So I never want to make a definitive statement. But on the face of it, if you look at something that's been time tested in a few years, over a few years, without having any severe side effects, one can assume that it's fairly safe. So that's why, I'm fairly confident on that. Of course, no one can be 100% in anything, but that's where we are.
You've given us a lot of positive news in the last few minutes. You're hopeful that the trials will get completed by January. You're hopeful possibly that by January the vaccine could be available in emergency doses for vulnerable groups, and possibly by the middle of next year made available to a large number of people. It appears almost that if we speak a year from now, we'll be in a much better place, therefore, in taking on corona. Did you think at any stage, even a few months ago at the start of the year, that we would be in such a position to talk so positively about a vaccine? Am I correct, given the history in the past where vaccines have taken years for them to finally reach markets?
Absolutely. Come in March, April, if you rewind to that period, I didn't even dream that we would have a vaccine ready so quickly, whether it's ours or anyone else's. But the way the regulation has been fast-tracked, of course, without cutting corners, we've just got rid of a lot of the bureaucracy and gotten on with the actual science and the work, and that's what's cut short the time. Having said that, I didn't have access to this data and these results which are coming in from the UK even about a month ago. So that's why I'm very positive now, very confident now, especially also after having vaccinated more than 1,000 Indians in India with this vaccine. So that's why, of course, I'm very hopeful, very confident now. It's just a matter of 2 or 3 months till we just complete these formalities. And as you rightly said, come this time next year, where at least our country is going to be in a very good position in terms of getting access to the vaccines and on our way to recovery.
Adar Poonawalla, thank you so much for joining me here and giving us a sense of what lies ahead in this race for a vaccine and where the Oxford AstraZeneca Serum Institute vaccine stands. Thanks very much. Now,
Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. And all of this coming, of course, on a day when in a press conference, Union Health Minister Harshvardhan spoke about India's extensive efforts for vaccine development and claims that the government is now asking states to make lists to ensure equitable distribution as soon as possible.
We have drawn a list of the probables or the people who should get the vaccine first, and that priority etc. is also being shared with the states. Line listing of those who should get the vaccine, our health workers and our frontline workers, etc., and those people with comorbidities. That is all shared with the states also, and the states are also expected to draw those lists.
Okay, so everything now seems to be in fast-forward mode in a way in this race for a vaccine. But are there any statutory warnings? Joining me now, another very special guest. I'm joined by the head for the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, Dr. Shekhar Mande joins me. Appreciate you joining us, Dr. Mande. The focus or the eyes of the world are on a vaccine. The general perception is that it takes years for a safe vaccine to be developed. Now we are talking of vaccines coming as early next year, including the Oxford vaccine. What's your sense? How do you see this entire process of, do you see this as safe and efficacious, this process of vaccine development? Any concerns?
So in general, the vaccine development process is very long, as you correctly pointed out. You have to first establish toxicity in animals and then healthy individuals before we go for the efficacy studies. And these have been done quite correctly. They have published it, they have made the data public. So in that sense, I don't think there are any concerns, at least on those fronts. There are 2 or 3 vaccine candidates which are considered to be front runners, and all of them which are considered to be front runners, their data is in public. And scientific fraternity has gone through that data, and that appears to be all right. So there is no concern, at least as far as that is there. What needs to be shown is that whether they are efficacious or not. So that remains to be shown.
Given also India's long experience, Dr. Mande, in immunization programs with vaccines being made available to millions of people, do you believe that that will also work in a way to India's advantage? Is India in that sense ahead of the curve?
Absolutely, yes. Now, whether everyone gets immunized or not, it's a challenge that very soon we are going to face it. But the thing is, as far as the manufacturing capability is there, anywhere in the world, the best manufacturing capabilities are with India. You know, I mean, people like Bharat Biotech, people like Serum of India, and other companies together, they have built a fantastic capability over the last several years in vaccine manufacturing. And in fact, a very good vaccine India developed on its own is the rotavirus vaccine a few years ago. And that was developed by a few academic institutes funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates and Bharat Biotech together. So it's a very proud example to show that vaccine can also be done in India. Vaccine design and everything can be done in India. And it is being manufactured today. So as far as the manufacturing game is there, I think we definitely are right up there along with the world.
I want to get though a scientific perspective. Do you believe that the approach that is being followed, the manner in which virologists across the world are responding to coronavirus, more than 180 vaccine candidates, does that suggest a remarkable improvement in scientific research when it comes to virology? Are we a process that takes normally years now seems to be fast forwarding and crunching the entire process? Is that a tribute to the progress that is being made?
You know, I mean, one of the best things that has happened due to the pandemic is that people realize the seriousness that humanity is facing today, and all the scientists around the world very quickly regrouped themselves, and irrespective of whether people were working on a particular area of virology or diagnosis or vaccine or something, they all very quickly reprogrammed themselves to this particular area. Let me give you one example. There is a group in one of the CSIR institutes called Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology. They have been working on the CRISPR technology for a long time. They have not been working on any of the infectious diseases per se. But the moment COVID problem came up, they thought that this technology would be fantastic in diagnosis. And they developed this Feluda that you might have heard of in press and media and everywhere. So people actually regrouped themselves, refocused their programs in terms of corona all over the world. And another good thing that happened was many private companies around the world, and that also happened in India, all of a sudden came forward and said that we want to work with academia. Because everybody recognizes that such a serious disease is upon us, and all of us must work together. That was the need of the hour. So everybody has stood by, and that's actually, I think, it's a good thing that has happened because of the pandemic.
One final question, Dr. Mande. I know that CSIR is working to develop its own drug solutions to the coronavirus vaccine. Just wanted to know, how is that progressing to find a drug for coronavirus?
So the new drug development program is as long, if not longer, than the new vaccine program around the world, because you have very set protocols of preclinical toxicology, you have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and all of it takes a long time. So we thought that our best bet to get something very quickly are the repurposed drugs. And we are evaluating a number of repurposed candidates right now. If you happen to log into our website called Cured, C-U-R-A-D, that gives a list of all the repurposing trials that we have initiated and which are going on right now. Some of them are in fairly advanced stage. One of them has cleared phase 2 and has gone into phase 3. So hopefully another month or two, we will have hopefully some good results. And if that happens, we will have at least some cure to present to the world.
That is more good news that's coming in, Dr. Mande. In a month or two, we may even be talking about repurposed drugs for coronavirus. Thank you so much, Dr. Mande, for joining me. And to all our viewers, thanks very much for watching. Remember, the News Unlocked is news without the noise. Thanks for watching.